Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others aspiring to be them can follow in their footsteps.
Okay, folks, welcome to another episode of Latte with a Lawyer. I'm your host, Jonathan Brickman, and this morning we have with us from the state of Georgia, Bryan Grantham from the law firm of Hawkins, Parnell. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. Good morning.
Excellent. Good. Glad to have you on the show. And you are in Georgia, right?
I am. Yeah, our firm's in Atlanta, and that's where I live.
Got it. That's what I thought. Okay, good. So just to kick this off with the theme of the show, what's your morning beverage of choice?
Yeah, I was worried about this question because I'm not a coffee drinker. So
Okay.
I drink a lot of water. I tend to drink maybe like an energy drink in the morning, but I generally don't drink coffee, unfortunately.
Oh, that's okay. No worries. I mean, it's just a fun way to get started. And there's a lot of people, believe it or not, that don't drink coffee.
I know I'm here to support the non-coffee drinkers of the world.
Excellent. Is that a conscious decision or just never got started?
I never got the taste for it. If we're on vacation, I might have a coffee in the morning, if we're in France or literally when in Rome, that sort of thing. But as far as just like daily around the office, around the house, I don't drink coffee.
Got it. Excellent. Good stuff. It's probably bad for you anyway. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, by the time I add like all the sugar and milk to it, I need to get it down. I'm just drinking like sugar milk anyway.
You're drinking sugar. There you go. All right, good. Water's much better for you anyway. So listen, tell me, it looks like you're a defense lawyer. Tell everybody about the type of work you do.
Right. So I would generally call my practice insurance defense work.
Okay.
And under that umbrella, there's really three pillars of my stool. There is professional liability defense. So I defend attorneys, engineers, architects, any licensed professional who gets sued for malpractice, we defend them. The second leg is premises liability. So business owners who get sued because someone was hurt on the premises, whether trip and fall, slip and fall, or third-party criminal act. That sort of thing.
Yep.
And then the third leg is I do transportation and trucking. So that's pretty self-explanatory. People get injured in a car accident and sue, and I defend the entity that they're suing.
Got it. Excellent. Yeah, no, I just had a defense attorney on just a little while ago. And I've been talking to a lot of defense attorneys, so I totally get that. That's good stuff. Where do you spend most of your time, or is it split across all those?
It's one of those things that's fluid. It seems like premises is the most, but there's a lot of trucking. It probably evens out to about 40-20 premises, trucking, professional liability being the 20%.
Yeah, that makes sense. Where are the biggest verdicts you're trying to protect against? Trucking, I would imagine, right?
Trucking, because it's really a couple of things when you're dealing with trucking or commercial vehicles. One, they're big. So a low speed accident in a dump truck or a tractor trailer does a lot of damage. Two, when you do a lot of damage, you get big injuries, and that almost always leads to a surgery. And so anytime someone has a surgery, you can count on medical bills being in six figures. They probably missed some work, so now they have lost wages.
Yep.
So, those trucking cases are almost always six figures and are more and more seven figures. So that's where the big stuff is. There's really almost no minor trucking accidents.
Yeah. No, I realize that. And they can be easily seven figures, right? When you talk about lost wages for over life expectancy, et cetera. I mean, they can become big cases.
They can be. And, then you start talking about policy limits and things like that. So, they pretty regularly get into seven figures because of just the nature of the case and the damages. And honestly, at the end of the day, jurors like to shift the burden of paying for damages to where they think the pockets are. And I think jurors tend to assume that the trucking company with the big truck has the big money.
Yep, that's right. Are there any caps in the state of Georgia?
Not really. There is for punitive damages, but Georgia, I think about 17 years ago, passed a limit on non-economic damages, but it got struck down as violative of the Georgia state constitution. So there's no caps, and Georgia has a strict collateral source rule. So what a plaintiff gets billed by the hospital is what they get to show the jury, not, well, I got billed 100,000, but I paid 5,000. They get to recover all of it in Georgia.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
And what about the non-economic? Again, there's no limit on that.
No limit on that. So pain and suffering is limited to the enlightened conscience of an impartial jury. So that's
Good way to
that's
put
where
it.
the big money is.
Yeah, enlightened conscious. Okay, excellent, good. Well, I always wonder about that when you go to different states, depending on the sort of the political environment there. You know, if that dictates. There seems to be a little bit of a paradox across states.
I agree. Yeah, it's funny in Georgia because I think people would consider Georgia a pretty conservative state, at least up until the last election.
Yeah.
But the laws, as far as damages and evidence and things like that, are very plaintiff friendly in Georgia.
Right.
And what we're having a tough time evaluating cases for our carriers fairly because the verdicts have just gotten explosive. Yeah. Especially in trucking cases, especially in what we call third-party criminal act premises cases. We just keep having big verdicts in Georgia, and it's an interesting paradox because I think people might picture Georgia as a more conservative state, but if you look in the surveys across the country, I think we're having some of the biggest verdicts across the country in Georgia right now.
Yeah, it was interesting. I was actually doing some research yesterday to try to figure that out. I mean, obviously California has big verdicts. What other states have big verdicts? Georgia apparently is one of them.
Yeah, we see them in Georgia. A lot of other states have these caps on non-economic damages, for better or worse. I think in Georgia, the big thing that would quote unquote fix these issues would be if we fix the collateral source rule. To me, the purpose of civil litigation is to make plaintiffs whole. And, if someone has health insurance and they have $100,000 in medical bills, but they only had to pay $5,000, well, that's the number the jury should hear.
Seems to make sense. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think, are we trying to make them whole, or are we trying to
win the lottery?
Give them are we trying to give them a windfall, so to speak? And I'm not, anti-plaintiff. I'm not a big, we need tort reform or we have frivolous lawsuits guy. But I do think that that's a big issue that we face, and eventually it's going to affect everyone's insurance rates. It's going to affect where companies will write commercial policies and what they'll put in them.
Right.
And so, more and more we're seeing exclusions in commercial policies for premises that are trying to exclude these criminal acts, or they just won't write them in some counties because of how explosive the verdicts get. So, we're seeing issues with that.
Yeah. No, I get that. That makes sense. I live in the state of Florida, and you see what seems to me frivolous insurance claims for like hurricane damage, and it just bumps the insurance rates up. People getting new roofs, right? They claim that there was damage.
Yeah, it's well, especially in Florida, it's crazy what's happening with homeowners insurance down there. Right. It's through the roof, pardon the pun.
Yes. Well, I'm one of those homeowners, so I don't, you don't want it to see it unnecessarily increase because people are taking advantage of the system.
For sure. And what I will say is I very rarely see a claim that I think is truly frivolous. There's at least some basis in fact or law for it. When an attorney files it, 99 out of 100 times. But, there is that 100th time out there where there's just no there.
Well, I would assume that, just sort of the bar keeps you honest, right? You can't just file frivolous claims.
Yeah, I
Right.
think that's true. Most of the time, if I see a frivolous claim, it's a pro se plaintiff. And you're right. I think attorneys do act as a filter for these things. And, at some point, it's the attorney's license and they don't want to lose it.
Right. Interesting. Yeah. So okay, interesting. So how'd you get started? How'd you become a lawyer? What was that path like? It looks like your dad was a lawyer. I can tell from your
My dad was a lawyer.
Yeah.
Yeah. My dad, well, I guess it still is a lawyer.
Or
He's
maybe
retired,
still
but
is.
he's so my father practiced criminal defense law and real estate law in a small town in Southwest Georgia called Donaldsonville.
Okay.
I kind of refer to what he does or did as door law. Whatever walked in the door, you take it. So, and so I was always around the practice of law growing up. Even as a kid, every now and then I would go to court with him, or just go to his office and type something. He had an old typewriter until I don't know, probably till I was 10 or 12.
Yeah.
So I learned how to type on a typewriter at my dad's office.
Nice.
And so just being around that, I was always interested in being an attorney. I went to college and dabbled in journalism for a while. And then someone told me what newspaper journalists start out making. And I decided that law school sounded a lot better.
That's right. They don't get paid very much. Yeah.
They do not.
No. So, all right, interesting. And how did you get into this line of work, defense?
It's funny. When I was in law school, I law clerked at a small plaintiffs firm that did legal malpractice plaintiffs work. So they sued attorneys. And I remember one time we went to a mediation, and it was at my current firm, Hawkins, Parnell. And, I grew up in a small town of 3,000 people with 3 stoplights. And so this was in downtown Atlanta, and it was on the 40th floor. And they had a big conference room with big windows where I could see all the other big buildings and things like that. And I remember thinking, man, I wish I could work at a place like this. And so after law school, I did 3 years of public defense work in Augusta, Georgia. And one day a friend of mine called me and said that Hawkins Parnell was hiring someone to do legal malpractice defense work. And so I interviewed, sent in writing samples and things like that. And then they proceeded to hire somebody else. But about a month later, I got a call from the attorney I interviewed with, and she said, well, we need to hire a second attorney. And so are you still willing to come on? And I said, yes. So it was cool. And I remember the first day in the office, I liken it to a major league player that gets called up from AAA. I felt like I was in the show, when I got up to the 40th floor and to my office and all that.
Oh, cool. Were you a baseball player growing up?
I played like little league and stuff
Little
like
league,
that.
so, okay.
But yeah, I'm baseball's probably my favorite spectator sport.
Oh, good. Well, you got a good city for it, right?
We do, yeah.
Did they build a new stadium in Atlanta?
Yeah, they built a new stadium. It opened in 2017, and they put like an arts and entertainment and restaurant district around it.
Oh, nice.
And so they've made it a really nice place to go and see a game.
Oh, good. And that's right. I haven't been there, so I don't know where it is, but is it easy to get to in the city?
It's easier than I thought it would be to get to. They put it just outside of the 285 perimeter, which runs around Atlanta. It's in the northwest sort of corner there.
Okay.
But it's not bad. We have a house in the middle of town, and it takes us 15 or 20 minutes to get there, so it's not bad.
Oh, so you actually go out of town to get there?
Yeah, technically. I mean, I think it's like technically an Atlanta address, but it's just outside the perimeter of the city. So and it's in Cobb County, which is the next suburban county out of Fulton, where Atlanta is.
Got it. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I mean, a lot of these big cities, right? You have it like that sort of clusters, so you can take public transportation. It's easy to get there. But I mean, say where I am too, like the basketball team plays in downtown Miami. Hockey is out in the suburbs, so it's all over the place. And then baseball is a truck to get there. So I like the cities where it's like really contained. You can just jump on the mass transit and get there easily. So
yeah, the football and basketball stadiums, arenas are still in downtown, so you can still hop on the train and get there, no problem. The baseball stadium is a bit of a drive.
Yeah. Anyway, good stuff. Atlanta's a cool city. Good stuff. So give me an example of like a memorable case that you worked on that stands out.
Yeah, so probably 5 or 6 years ago, my wife is a attorney. She's a public defender.
Okay.
And she was trying a murder case. And in Georgia, the rule, at least then, was if you were doing an insanity defense, you had to give the state 10 days notice. But the exception to that was if you were doing an insanity defense without an expert, you didn't have to give notice. And so she's trying a murder case. And during opening statement is the first time she says, we're seeking an insanity defense, and we want the jury to find him, not guilty by reason of insanity, that sort of thing. And so after her opening, the state objected, and the judge granted a mistrial. And when I was a public defender, I had handled not a similar fact issue, but a similar legal issue. And so I told her, when she was telling me what happened, I was like, that the judge doesn't realize it, but he just acquitted your client. And she's like, what? I said, if the judge grants a mistrial wrongfully after the jury has been impaneled, your client stands acquitted. And so I got permission to work on that case pro bono from my office and from hers. And so I wrote the brief and worked with her. I did the oral argument at the Georgia Supreme Court, and they agreed with us that the judge was wrong in granting the mistrial, and her client stood acquitted because double jeopardy had attached. So that was a huge win. I got interviewed by the Associated Press. We were in the New York Times.
So I could do a search and find that case.
Yeah, if you search for the Gary Otis case, Gary Otis, you'll find it. And so
check that out.
Yeah, so I was on local TV and stuff like that. I mean, I think to the point that I think my law firm maybe didn't love all the publicity about it, just because the facts of the case. It was a murder case, and there's no question that he had killed the lady.
Sure.
It was just a question of culpability was the only issue for the jury to decide. And so my wife was the only person in the courtroom who knew the law. And, so.
Those are, I would imagine those are tricky. I mean, when you're defending in that case where you're talking about, it's like they're guilty on one hand, but yet you're defending it on a different level. I mean, those are tricky. I mean, how do public defender, you have to give someone defense, but I would imagine you're torn sometimes with those.
Yeah, I think at least for me, when I was a public defender, I think you almost have to take the individual or the individual act out of it, and you have to remind yourself that you're defending a system.
Right.
We have a constitutional system that requires the government to prove people are guilty. And so that's why we don't find people innocent at trial. We find them guilty or not guilty, which I think is bad nomenclature. I think we ought to call the verdicts proven beyond a reasonable doubt or not proven beyond a reasonable doubt, because I think people hear not guilty and they think that means innocent, which is not what it means. It's proven or not proven.
Right.
Would be a better way to describe the verdicts. And so, I think you have to just say people are entitled to a trial. They're entitled to make the government prove all the elements of the crime. And that's what I'm here defending today.
Yeah, interesting. That's really interesting. I'm actually reading the book. You might know of it, Mercy.
Yeah, Bryan Stevenson's book.
Yeah. And that's really interesting to listen to his story.
Yeah.
I'm just getting
he's an interesting guy. Obviously, I think he went to Harvard and then ends up down in Alabama doing basically public interest work.
Yep, correct. It's pretty interesting. I mean, I got to get through it still, but yeah, I mean, so he's defending prisoners, people on death row, and just telling those stories. It's pretty fascinating. But to your point, he's performing a service, right? That should be technical, right? You can't get involved too personally with it, but you're lawyering the case.
Right. Yeah, that's a different level, but I think on his level, it's about defending that everybody, even people who've done atrocious things, have humanity.
Yeah.
And should be entitled to life, even if it's a life in confinement. So it's interesting the work he does.
Yeah, very, very interesting. So anyway, good stuff. What I was gonna, obviously your dad was an influence. I was gonna think of things I wanted to ask you, but so did you ever think about the plaintiff side? I mean, it's interesting. I mean, people, I talked to a lot of plaintiff and recently a lot of defense. It's obviously very different. Have you thought about the plaintiff side and why staying on the defense side?
Yeah, I just think it's the way I'm bent, that I believe more in, I don't know, poking holes in things than proving them, I suppose. Okay. I've had people ask if I was ever interested in plaintiff's work, and some of it's that, some of it is kind of like what we talked about earlier about some of the rules on damages and things like that. I just can't, and this is not a knock on the plaintiff's bar, but like for me personally, I just can't, I don't want to say in good conscience, because that feels like a moral judgment, but just for me, like I don't jive with that theory of the law. I don't believe that somebody who got billed $100,000 but paid $10,000 should get to tell a jury, I got $100,000. Or like, we have these criminal act premises liability cases, and essentially what the law is in Georgia is, say you're defending a national pharmacy chain and somebody gets shot in the parking lot there. Essentially, the law in Georgia is, if they've had any crime in that parking lot in the last, let's call it 3 years, you can't win summary judgment. And even if they have cameras and security guards and whatever else, or even if it's just like a drive-by shooting and there's nothing they could have done, that issue gets to a jury and it's a multi-million-dollar verdict. And, I certainly agree that businesses that have negligent security, that allow violent crime to develop on their property, should be held to account. But so many of these cases I see, and I look and I think, well, what the hell was my client supposed to do? I mean, like at apartment complexes, were we supposed to have had an armed guard that followed every resident?
Right.
And so just things like that. And, that's how you keep the lights on and make money. And, for me, I just don't agree with those theories of cases or damages, but, that's the law. And the same with talking about criminal defense. I have respect for the other side of the V, which upholds the law and defends those people who are entitled to file a claim and have a day in court. And they probably don't agree with me on my theory of what damages should be, and that's fine. That's why both sides get to have a litigator and a representative and fight it out in court.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah. No, I think people sort of find their place, right? I mean, so the way sort of your perspective on things, it makes sense that you're on the defense side. Yeah.
Right. I suppose it does.
Yeah, for sure. Well, that's good. I mean, everyone needs to find their place. I mean, everyone needs to find their place in life where they're good at it and they like it, and they want to get up every day and do it. Otherwise, it can get pretty tough, right?
For sure.
So good stuff. Anyone else in your family, attorneys besides your dad?
My father, my wife, her two sisters, and her father.
Wow. Oh man, you must have some good Thanksgiving discussions then.
Sometimes, yeah.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah, no, I'm not from a family of lawyers, but I would imagine you guys have some good debates.
Every now and then. I mean, lawyers learn to speak a different language than other people, and it's sometimes you get caught playing lawyer in your house or in discussions with other lawyers, and they'll call you on it and say, don't talk legalese to me.
Right. Exactly. So how do you, I mean, so you go to trial, right? You actually do jury trials?
We do, yeah.
Oh, good. So how do you get ready for those? What's your approach? How do you make sure you're going to get the outcome you want?
Well, I think you got to be prepared first. It helps, when you're with a case start to finish. Sometimes you're not. Sometimes you jump in the middle of a case and have to catch up on what's happened before you got into it. But when your cases have a rhythm to them, there's complaint, there's answer, there's written discovery, there's depositions, there's motions, and so there's a rhythm to every case. And I think as long as you stay up with that rhythm and know your facts, know your case, that's the first step in getting ready before it's even set for trial. You have to, I can't remember, it was in some self-help book I read, but it says, you begin with the end in mind. And I think you have to do that in any case, is think about where it's going. And then, getting ready for trial, it's all about prepping your witnesses, developing your strategy, making sure you've got your exhibits, things like that. I think most attorneys will tell you it's 2-to-1 prep time to trial time. So if you got a 1-week trial, it's probably going to take you 2 weeks to get ready, maybe more. It probably is more on the plaintiff side, honestly, because they've got the burden of proof. And for me, I've just got to shoot holes in it.
Right.
So,
do you use focus groups? Do you use mock trials? Do you do any of those kind of things?
On bigger cases, we will.
Okay.
We will use focus groups or mock trials. But not every case. I mean, that's probably less than 10% of the cases that we do that on. And it's cases where it's generally cases that are hard to evaluate that we do that. So maybe there's a damages issue, but there's also a liability issue. Most cases, I think we're trying really either on liability or damages, meaning we either don't think we were at fault, but we kind of agree with them what the harm is if we were,
right.
Or we agree we were at fault, but we don't agree with them on how much we owe them. So it's on those cases where we don't know what liability is or damages that we find the focus groups most helpful, because they can give us a sense of, well, how many days out of 10 do we win this trial? And when we lose, what does it look like?
Interesting. Okay. Yeah. So the things that are not so clear cut, like you gave the example of premises liability. I would imagine you'd want to get some opinion on that.
You do, yeah.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that become complex because, especially in the criminal sense, you want the jurors who will say, well, there's nothing they could have done about that. That's just a random crime on their property. Whereas, some jurors believe that, well, that happened on their property. That's their responsibility.
Hmm.
And you sort of want to figure out who's who.
Yeah. I would think so. So there's a lot of skill in preparing, who you want on your jury, things like that. Yeah,
For sure.
and so you get to go in the courtroom though.
Yeah. I probably try. Of course, obviously we've had COVID, but I'm probably trying a jury trial 1 or 2 times a year.
Okay.
In court, arguing motions every couple of months, things like that. So yeah, I actually get to see the inside of a courtroom.
Oh, good. And you enjoy that? It seems like you would. Seems like you'd be good at that.
I that's the part of my job I enjoy the most is actually trying cases.
Yeah.
I like writing motions and things like that, but the actual getting in there and trying cases and arguing and trying to connect with a jury, that's the thing I enjoy the most.
Yeah. You seem like you were a good student. Were you a good student?
I not really.
No.
I mean, no, to me, college and law school were sort of a means to an end. And also, I mean, candidly, I'm a big picture 30,000 foot guy. And so I'm not super detail oriented. And I think those are the things that matter more in an educational setting are the details.
I see. Okay.
I'm a big, why is this important? What does this matter kind of person? And which, sometimes it's tough being a lawyer because people will pick fights about the dumbest stuff.
Right. You got to get into the details, right? You got to get into the
you do. And, for me, I'm big, what does this matter? Why is this important? So, for me, I wasn't a great student because to me, the end was always, becoming a lawyer, getting in a courtroom, practicing law.
Okay. Interesting. Well, you seem intellectual about it. That's why that's why I made that statement. I mean, you're thinking about this stuff, but yeah, I mean, some people are big picture people and other people are really like detailed, button down kind of approach. I tend to be more big picture myself. I'd rather outsource the details.
Yes, for sure. I'm not, I rely heavily on my assistant and paralegal to proofread things.
Got it. Yeah. They're very important, right? I mean, a good paralegal is really paramount, right?
Yeah, your ability as a lawyer will only be as good as the team around you.
Yeah. Okay, good. Excellent. Well, listen, I will, let me wrap this up here. I don't want to take any more of your time. It's been really interesting. I love talking to the defense counsel because most of the time we get people on the plaintiff side. So I like to hear your perspective. So parting words about your firm, or if somebody wants to reach you, what's the best way?
Yeah, so the best way to reach me is you can, Google me, Bryan Grantham, Bryan, Grantham, Grantham. Hawkins and Parnell in Atlanta. You can reach me 404-614-7654. I return phone calls every day or within 24 hours. So that's an important part of my practice.
Yeah. No, I saw you made a note of that. That's interesting. Good. Anyway, it's been a pleasure to have you. And once again, this is Bryan Grantham from the law firm of Hawkins, Parnell in Atlanta, Georgia. And this is sponsored by EmotionTrac, and we are a legal tech platform that helps trial attorneys with their case prep for trials and mediation. And we allow you to tell your story digitally and see what people think about it and gather unbiased feedback. So thank you very much, Bryan. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you as well.
Okay.